Here we go. Let's do this.
We've got one life, one shot. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? Addicted to Betterment, a podcast to inspire us to keep going, to try something new, to dream, to think big, bigger, to overcome. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Hello again, everyone. Man, today we're talking about brotherhood. What a subject. And I am passionate about today's conversation and passionate about today's subject. You know why? Because it's real. We're going to pull back the posturing today, peel off the mask. And today we're going to talk about brotherhood. Not the kind that you see at networking events, not having a bunch of friends on social media, or as much as I love playing golf with my brothers. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about what real brotherhood looks like and kind of what it doesn't. So many of you probably remember recently a fighter pilot got shot down behind enemy territory on a mission in Iran. And I remember when that happened, and it was all over the news. All of us in America were watching, and the pilot got injured. He got injured when he ejected from the plane, and the story goes, and of course we only know what we hear, but he was bleeding, and we know that the enemy soldiers were searching for him, an all-out search to try to capture him, and he was climbing up a mountain in Iran to just save his own life. And today's guest, my friend Jacob Anderson, and we were sitting at a bar talking about this, and I was getting emotional. Jacob, a former fighter pilot himself, was also sharing that emotion even more so. And I remember talking about how incredibly powerful it must have been. This injured fighter pilot down behind enemy lines, knowing that these Iranian soldiers wanted to capture him. What was the thing that pushed him to keep pushing, keep climbing when most people would have given up? And I believe that the thing that gave him extra courage, extra strength when he probably felt like giving up was knowing that his brothers were coming for him, that they would do whatever it took, use whatever resources possible to come and save their injured brother. Jacob, for those of us who have never been in military aviation, I have no idea what that scene looked like or felt like. And I'm curious, before we get started in today's episode, what is the mindset when you get the signal someone is down, we got to go get him? What are the resources that are activated? What's the mindset? What's the energy and emotion that happens in that scenario?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me again, David. Great to chat with you again. As always, I'm excited to talk about aviation, especially fighter pilot stuff. So, the wife's gotten sick of it at this point, so this is a great opportunity. Yeah, I've actually been in that situation. In 2011, my squadron went into Libya, if you're old enough to remember that, and there was, I think it was the second or third night of the war. I had two close friends go down in Libya at night. Nobody knew what happened, how they went down, what the situation was. And the interesting to note is you have a mission before, like an American aviator goes down in combat behind enemy territory, and that mission completely changes when that happens. So that's when all resources are allocated to get that guy back. And that's exactly what happened that night. So the first thing that really happens is all of the airplanes that are in the air, right? They immediately go and start assisting with that recovery effort. And it's pretty remarkable, when it happened in Libya. There was some Navy planes, there were some Air Force planes. The Marines were sitting, I think Marine Force Recon, they were sitting in the middle of the Mediterranean. Everybody was there to assist to get those pilots home. And yeah, it's just a powerful thing when that happens. I remember I was actually briefing a mission to go out fly. I was like 2 hours behind the two guys that went down, and they never interrupt a brief. When you're briefing, especially a combat mission, for somebody to knock on the door and say, "Hey," that's unheard of, and that did happen that night. And real quickly, my mission brief changed from pre-briefing for you're planning for 3 hours and then an hour brief to, "Hey, you're at the desk, you're in your gear. Here is the mission. You know what to do. Go get him home. And so that's exactly what happened. And yeah, it's very emotional for all of us because we fight for our brothers, right? You know, you serve with them, you fly with them every day, you know, and when they go down, you want to be the guy that goes into systems. And you know, from what we've kind of seen in the unclassed channels on Iran, that's exactly what happened. I think it was a pilot and a Wizzo, F-15 Strike Eagle, what I flew. The pilot went down. He was recovered very quickly. And once again, people always say, well, why was he recovered quickly and then the Wizzo wasn't? There's just a lot that can happen. You get separated when you eject. Somebody's chute might work better than the others. There's a lot of things that can happen. So the pilot was recovered rather quickly. And if I remember correctly on the news, it was, you know, there was some helicopters damaged, an A-10 damaged, and then had to eject, I think, over the water. But like I said, there was never a thought in their mind, "Hey, I might get hurt if I go help him," right? It was all hands on deck, right? And it just doesn't even cross your mind when one of your brothers goes down.
I mean, I can't help. We just got to jump right into this because I believe that today's modern man feels like that downed fighter pilot. I feel like, you know, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we're climbing mountains wounded. I feel like today's man is often, I'm speaking for myself, Jacob, and I know you resonate with this because we sat at the bar and I'm sitting at one of the nicest bars in Carmel, Indiana, next to you, and great environment, beautiful scenery, and fighting back tears to be that one guy at the bar having a drink with my brother, crying like a little girl, but I couldn't help it because, knowing that if I'm trying to do life, if I'm trying to show up for my brother, if I'm trying to kill it in business, if I really am trying to be a husband and a father and a son, I feel like I'm falling up short all the time. I feel like in every area I'm fighting as hard as I can. And so often it feels like falling up short. And so, to your point, no one says, "Oh, did he earn it? Did he earn it? Can we go save him? Is he good enough that we should go save?" I mean, he'll just figure it out. I love that what you just said. It's like all hands on deck. Let's go get him. Jacob, if that the scenario that we are all feeling like that modern, like that down pilot, the modern man who actually cares, why is it that we feel that way? Like, you and I have talked about this, but I feel like that's a mirror of life for a man that's really, really going after it. And it feels like chaos. It feels like you're behind enemy lines. Why is that?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And man, I'll marry you. I am not the example man, right? I'm not the person that anybody really should be listening to in my mind, right? I'm just one guy trying to make it the same as the last. And yeah, we just feel overwhelmed. You know, I think I try to boil it down. You know, it's interesting. I made a big transition when I got out of the military. All military guys do. We have such a focused, we have power. They train you to be lethal, right? I was given an airplane, and it's not just an airplane, it's a weapon of war, a very, very destructive weapon of war. And they train you how to use it lethally, right? You have power, but it's under authority. Authority of the government, authority under rules of engagement, authority under, the Geneva Conventions and what you've been trained to do, right? But when you get out and you have a mission too as well, right? Not only that, then they give you missions, right? We were told to go into Libya and do certain things, right? That's what we're trained to do. We went to Afghanistan, go protect the ground troops there. We had a mission. I feel like when I got out of the military, now all of a sudden the rug has been pulled out from underneath me. I feel like I don't have power, I don't have authority, I don't have a mission. I'm in directionless, right? And if I had to guess, I'm no expert, but I would guess that's probably why a lot of people like myself struggle when you get out of the military, right? What is my power? What should I be focusing on? Where's my authority, my direction, right? And then you feel exposed on all fronts, right? Just like you said. Now I'm trying to run a successful business and I'm failing at it sometimes. I'm trying to manage myself. I'm failing at that sometimes. I'm trying to keep my health good. I'm trying to, take care of my family and try to focus on God as much as I can, but you feel like you're failing on all front. You're exposed on all fronts, and you feel honestly like I have no wingman. I have nobody there to check my flanks, to check my six, to back me up. And I feel like, wow, I know what that feels like, you know?
Jacob, I the reason why we're talking today is because I believe with everything that's in me is that today's man who's in the fight, who's in the battle. The reality is for me in Indianapolis, Indiana, when I see on the news that the fighter pilot or that the pilot or the guy got shot down and they were going to rescue him, I care, I'm moved, but it doesn't really affect my day-to-day life that much, you know? So I'm somewhat removed from it. Well, I care and I feel about it now different for you being a former pilot and that's your brotherhood. So, but for me, I've never been in the military. I've never, those are not my brothers, so to speak. But we all feel like we are that guy from what I think is in today's man who is trying to do it. His marriage is struggling. He's feeling like he's failing in his spiritual life. He's trying to be a great dad. And if you're trying to be a great dad and you really care in today's world, you better bring it every day. The challenges are everywhere. If you're trying to, the business economy, I mean, our social system right now, it's, a friction everywhere. And so in every area of life, to your point, I feel like you feel like you're behind enemy lines. And so today's man feels like that fighter pilot. And, we're talking because today's man's exhausted, he's overwhelmed, he's scared, all those feelings that resonate in the brotherhood of that and what that was like. One, what it felt like for that guy to know that his brothers are coming for him. And two, what that looks like when we say, our man is down. We are going to go get him. In fighter pilot training, forgive me if I ask questions ignorantly because I don't know the language. So I know you'll correct me, but what role does communication play in survival and in the rescue mission? Like, what role does communication play in that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously huge, huge because, and it talked about this on the news a little bit. After they eject, you activate your survival radio, which has all the bells and whistles in it to help you get recovered. Well, if you don't communicate that you have been shot down, and here is my location, and here's my medical status, you know, I've got a broken arm, I've got a broken leg, I can barely walk, right? How are they going to help you? So communication's key, especially behind enemy lines. So it's important to get that radio on as quick as you can, right? And transmit your position and your status as fast as possible. Also, I mean, just think about it logically, right? Let's say you are behind enemy lines and they're hunting you down, which is like the worst case scenario for a fighter pilot, right? Some would rather just go down in a smoking hole than be flaunted across Iranian TV, right, as a prisoner of war. Worst case scenario. You gotta say, "Who's trying to fight me? Where am I threatened right now? Where are my threats coming from?" Right? Because they can't help you unless they know where the threats are coming from.
Yeah. So putting myself in that role right now with you. So someone goes down, and again, I know you can only share so much information, but if I'm hearing you, they communicate where their location is, their injury, the level of injuries, kind of their physical handicaps based on what has happened. And then do they communicate what the threats are, or they just become super aware and trying to maneuver, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, and it's all really common sense stuff, you know. This isn't any secret stuff, but yeah, you would want to know, I'm on the ground, okay? Am I medically hurt, right? Are there any threats around me? Is there anybody trying to actively get to me right now? Where are they and how many of them are there, right? All that sort of stuff you're communicating, right? So, and then where am I going, right? You know, like the wizzo that ended up spending about 48 to 50 hours there in Iran, right? He probably said something to the effect of, I'm climbing up that mountain and I'm going to get as high and as far away from people as possible. But just so you know, here's where I'm headed. Here's where I expect to be, you know?
It moves me that we're talking about elite military personnel here. I know, it's annoying how you like to be humble and man, I'm just a regular guy and all the things. But at the end of the day, Jacob, you and the guys we're talking about right now are elite military personnel. And so, from a superficial standpoint, guys like myself are like, those are the most badass humans in the world. And what is it that allows that elite military guy to say, I need help? I am down, I need help. But yet us normal person like myself and my friends, we hesitate to throw that signal out and say, I'm down, I need help. Yet the elite military, that first thing they do is go communicate. I'm down. I'm hurt. I need help.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting, right? I don't know what the answer is. Some thoughts that I have. I mean, I think the modern world is making it worse. Think about social media. People post their best life there, right? Everybody you know is living their best life, best vacations, best business successes, right? Best revenue numbers, best this and that, right? Nobody posts when they're down, And so that's got to make it worse, right? Maybe you feel just so vulnerable and exposed where everybody else is doing well and you're not, right? So what do? You turn it inward and you isolate, right? You hole up as a way, I don't know, to maybe protect yourself as much as you can, I don't know. I've done it myself, I've done it myself a lot. I still do it. So, but maybe that has something to do with it, But it's interesting, as far as like ejecting, I thought about this as an interesting thread. When I was flying the F-15, and you're in the air and you're armed to the teeth and you've got all the weapons, all the gear, your wingman's loaded to the teeth as well, right? You're sitting on top of the world, right? You are on point, and then you eject. And by the way, nobody ever thinks that they're going to be the one that's going to be the one ejecting. It's always going to be your buddy. Always your buddy is going to happen to, not you, right? You're too good for that. And then all of a sudden, I can imagine those guys are hanging from their chutes, right? In the darkness of the night, parachuting down to Iran. And all they have now is a 9 millimeter, a little pea shooter, and a radio. And that's it, you know? Talk about feeling exposed, right? There's a good correlation there as far as feeling exposed goes. You're in a different realm now.
As you're talking, it's resonating with me in my life. And I can't help but think for my friends listening to this, as a man, are you feeling that? Are you feeling that descriptive of, I'm flying the military jet, the F-15 Strike Eagle. If I said that wrong, please forgive me. But, I'm flying this badass piece of machinery and I've got the world by the tail. I'm in control. And then suddenly out of nowhere, sometimes maybe to a faulty move or a bad decision or a mistake, sometimes out of your control, completely out of your control. Either way, suddenly you find yourself parachuting down, as you just described, in that feeling of, I'm in trouble. And man, I feel like so many of my brothers, our friends are feeling that today in this moment, behind enemy lines. And talking about what brotherhood, really looks like. Can you share a moment, Jacob, in your career where, this wasn't just a concept or it was something that you actually felt where it's either, you mentioned this when, they knocked on the door and said, but share with me what that brotherhood felt like in that moment in real life as a fighter pilot. Like, this is what I was feeling in those moments.
Yeah, I mean, just tons of I mean, brotherhood stories. It's all around you, when you're in that when you're a fighter squad and you're surrounded by about, at least I was, there was half pilots, half wizzos, so probably call it 60 of your peers, all within maybe 10 or 15 years of your age, right? You're all doing the same thing, same mission, interacting every day. The brotherhood is all around you, but really, it's funny because the brotherhood really is a big part making fun of each other, right? When you screw up, right? When things are going good, right? You're always razzing each other. I mean, it's just kind of how men are. But when something happens where somebody really needs help, that's where you really find out you do have a band of brothers. When my two buddies went down in Libya, I was activated. A bunch of other people were activated. We didn't actually know what had brought them down. I probably can't say, but let's just say that there was a possibility that us that went to go look for him that we weren't going to come back either. That was in my mind, right? I remember shaking my Wizzo's hand before we got in the jet, right? No words were said. We said, hell or high water, we're getting him. It doesn't even matter if I come back or not. And I was like, that had to have been the same feeling in Iran. And people don't understand. There's like, look at all those resources they activated through those people. What a waste. What a waste to do all that for one guy. But if you're that one guy, you're going to want that. And the best correlation of this is the verse in the Bible that says, Jesus talking about the shepherd who leaves the 99 sheep for that one sheep that is lost. And when you're that guy that's on the ground and you get that sort of response from your brothers, oh my God, what a relief to have that sort of support, right? And so that's just it's a very powerful thing. And I think that's something that was probably missed on these news cycles, right? About the waste of resources. I fly part time as well, corporate now. But I remember being in a hotel room. I was on a work trip, and I remember when I've had a lot of presidents I served under, Secretary of Defenses or Secretary of Wars I served under. Some great, some maybe I didn't like so much. But when Trump sent out, I remember Trump sent out a tweet or whatever, True Social, whatever it was, and he said, talking about the recovery effort, that we got him. And he said, we will never leave an American warrior behind. And I had tears coming down my face, man, because to have that feeling, man, of that support system around you, right? You're not outflanked. You know what I mean? You have wingmen. You do have a support structure around you. That's such a big part of brotherhood.
I tell you what, the power in that, for any of us, you and I have talked about this off the record, those moments where you feel that in life, you feel everything around you is collapsing. When one of your brothers reaches out to that same extent, says, you know that they are not going to leave you behind, that they're not going to let you stay stranded, fighting for your life alone. We're coming. We are coming. I still remember the emotion that you had sitting next to me at the bar when we were discussing that. I could literally feel it in my body. Just the it's strong emotions that you carried around that. And I know what that emotion feels like as a man. While never been in military or served in the military, when you have brothers in your life, and I think it's two things, and I'm coming to a question. My question is, do you feel that we are in a brotherhood crisis in our society today, or what that looks like? Because there's two things in my mind. I'm guilty of this so much, Jacob, where I don't want to say I'm down, I'm injured, I'm bleeding. So half of my brothers often don't even know that I'm injured because I'm posturing, I'm showing up, I'm smiling, I'm doing the thing, I'm here, I am a powerhouse and I'm going to get it done. And my brothers don't even know that I'm bleeding and I feel like I'm dying. So there's that. And then it's the other side of, hey, when our brother is bleeding and when we know he's under duress, that mindset of, do we walk away? Do we, he'll figure it out. He'll figure it out. Or do we say, hey, my man's down? Like you and I had goosebumps from head to toe, Jacob, when you said you and your Wizzo shook hands, no words. It was hell or high water. We're going to go get him. Do you feel like we're in a crisis of that right now?
Yeah, definitely. Probably multi-sided too, because I'll tell you, man, after I got out of the military, I've had multiple of those moments, right? I'm outflanked on all sides. I'm drowning. I don't know what to do. I have had those brothers that I can call and say, I'm in trouble and I need help. And they've been there for me. But I tell you what, sometimes I'd just hold up and not said a thing too. So what's the root cause behind that? I don't know if I have the right answer, right? What is the root cause behind why we don't reach out, right? Maybe it's because we don't. We think we have close brotherhood sometimes, but maybe we don't, right? Maybe we're not sharing life enough, right? Maybe we're not in the right environments. I know distance, probably everything's tech and online now across state lines and whatnot. Maybe that has something to do with it, but there's probably a lot of reasons to go into. But, the core thing that I take is like when I haven't spoke up that I needed help, right? Why did I do that? Why didn't I ask for help, right? And did I actually have a band of brothers around me? Because often you get in life where I'm at, wife, kids, job, you're swamped. I mean, everybody is more isolated now than they were 50 years ago. It's just a fact, right? We don't share life as much as we used to, right? And it's probably making the matter worse, right? So how do we actually develop a brotherhood where that's possible again?
The challenging thing is, my friend, is what happens to men when they do fight life's battles alone. So you just described yourself, and I felt like you were talking to me, but there have been times where I was like, I need help. You and I have had those moments where it's like, bro, I feel like I'm drowning here. And I've done it the opposite, where I've not said a word and I've showed up and I've smiled, and inside I'm bleeding and I'm looking at the mountain thinking, I got to get higher. How can I get higher? And I haven't told a soul. But inside, I'm clawing and fighting and trying to get to the next level. And I believe that the result of that is depression, it's addiction, it's isolation, suicide, and then at a lower level, burnout, loss of purpose, but that happens when we try to fight alone.
Regarding the isolation. So I've been there a lot. And one thing I pondered on is I wonder if men isolate because we are required to be strong for everyone else. You go to church, right? Can you really share in front of your wife and kids? Can you really be vulnerable? Can you really say you're struggling in front of them? Men are required to carry a lot of weight, right? In a unique way. Women are as well, right? But in a different way sometimes. But maybe we isolate is because it's all on our shoulders and we have no one to share it with. Maybe we need to build a stronger brotherhood with other people that we can, right? Other men. I think that's very important. And I think I learned that. I went to a men's camp in Colorado. It's a very good friend of mine in Colorado. Great guy. Shout out to him. And it was a 3-day camp for men only. The kind of transformation that I saw in that camp was wonderful. But you know what the funny thing was? The first day we were there, nobody wanted to share anything. We were all kind of unwinding years of stuff. And only when it was really built then did kind of the walls fall down and men were able to then start rebuilding each other. But it's amazing what can happen when you do that.
I feel like I've noticed it often. We're surrounded by people, but struggling for that deeper connection. We have so much of this surface level, but that's not real brotherhood. Like, to that point of how do we get deeper and actually share? I mean, often I believe we are sitting at the table next to, or at the bar next to, brothers, and we have this, I think back to the military where you and your brothers would give each other a hard time for mistakes that you made. But, it's that moment where we say, I'm hurt, I'm injured, and I need help. I keep coming back to that, the image of the downed fighter pilot, injured, alone, genuinely alone. I mean, not feeling alone, he was alone, climbing up a mountain, trying to survive just long enough to be found. And Jacob, I believe that's where someone who's listening today is feeling that same way, is feeling that same exact thing. And if a man is feeling that today, if he's listening to this and that's what he's feeling, where does he start? Where does he start to say, send the signal, send the signal? Where do you begin?
Yeah, it's a good question. And once again, probably don't have very good answers for people, but I have thoughts and unique perspective. One thing that I've noticed, I think a root of all of this is a lack of purpose. Men without purpose. Think about it. When you're a kid, you're a boy. What do boys always do? They grab a stick, they turn it into a gun or a sword, and then go and battle the bad guys. Why is that, right? There's a great book called Wild at Heart by the guy's name is passing me by right now, but it's a great book, but he kind of goes into that, right? That men have a warrior heart, right? We are designed to have purpose. And I feel like when I got out of the military, I lost my purpose, right? And I wonder if, and I'm still always trying to find it, right? What is my purpose, right? I think that is core to myself included, all the men that are lost to say, how do I get brotherhood, right? Because you really can't have brotherhood without think about it, you got to have a shared purpose, shared identity. There was a great TED talk. It was some PhD. He basically studied trust. And he had really great points on how you actually build trust. There's three things to build trust with anybody. One is expertise. You have to know what you're doing, right? If I'm going to take somebody flying, they better be sure that I am actually a good pilot. I'm average at best. The next thing is benevolence. Benevolence means they have to know that your needs are ahead of their own. And the third thing is you have shared value system. You share the same values, right? And I've always thought, right? So in order to have brotherhood, you probably should have a shared purpose and maybe some element of those things, right? So what is our purpose together as a men in brotherhood, right? There has to be some underlying fundamental thing of organization around your life of purpose, right? These are random thoughts. I don't mean to derail your podcast, but I think it's maybe related here.
What I'm hearing, a good place to start that brotherhood, and I feel like this is directly correlated to fighter pilot world, and from what I've heard from you, but shared purpose, benevolence means I actually give a crap about you, and I'm not just in it for myself. I care about who you are as a person, and if you were to say, "Hey, I'm injured," I'm gonna be there to help you. And then third, shared values.
Yeah, and it's almost like you have to have a shared mission of some sort, you know? Because think about the people that you generally interact with the most. What do you have? You generally have the same values, right? This guy gets me, we're the same, right? Brothers from another mother, right? But usually the ones you are closest with is you have a shared mission. This is what we are going to go achieve together. And so it seems like those are critical to it, whether it's God and helping people or it's a shared mission of a business that you're going to grow together, right? Those are the people you interact with the most.
Jacob, if I was sitting next to you, I'd punch you in the nose right now for saying you're average fighter pilot. We all know better. That's not true. And when your biggest fan, your wife, watches this and sees that you said that, you're probably going to be in trouble because she's going to not like that.
Just don't call my buddies. They'll definitely say I'm
Oh,
average.
okay. That's fair. Question that's just ringing in my head as you're sharing this. Your fighter pilot career is over. That's done. You wore that hat. As your fighter pilot career ended, you're moving into civilian life, and your accomplishments is that you are not average. You are well above average, and we know that. What do you feel you learned from that matters most? And what do you add from it? You're like, man, this is what remains when all of that is done. This is what's left, and this is what matters most.
Yeah, I've been digging into this a lot. I'm excited about this topic. Where do I start on this? So, when you're a fighter pilot, that's kind of your whole identity, right? Probably with a lot of people, right? I'm a successful business owner. I am a successful personal trainer. I am the world's best athlete. It's your identity. And your identity is built on a house of cards or on quicksand. You know, as soon as that water hits, it's gone, right? And you find yourself saying, "What is my identity?" And I think that's a big thread. That's what I left. Well, I have to find what my real identity, what my eternal identity is, right? So that then I can actually have a purpose that doesn't shift with the wind, right? Because that's today's life too. It happens to me all the time, right? Oh, I'm going this direction. Now I'm going this and I'm doing this. And man, that's life. It's just so confusing sometimes. But also I've been digging in a lot about make me sound like a bit of a dork probably, but I watched the movie The Last Samurai. Fantastic. There is some thread about the samurai that feeds into this brotherhood thing. Because look up the word samurai, what that word means. One who serves. One who serves. And they live under this principle, and I don't follow it, but I've read about it. I was like, there is a very good thread here. It's called Bushido. And I was like, all the principles that they basically live under, which is like, integrity, honor, service, respect, like all of these core tenets, right? And this is kind of jumbled, but maybe where does this meet? Maybe the first thing, right, when you leave the military and you have to now find a new purpose is, I think, mastering yourself has to come first before you can master anything else. And take it from the guy who's probably done it and put the cart before the horse here. All right. But maybe brotherhood is all about we have a shared purpose to increase ourselves, to master ourselves like Bushido, like samurai, in order to become the strongest foundation we can do. Because if you don't do that first, what else are you going to be able to do? Right. And did samurai have brothers? Was it a brotherhood? Were they lone wolf monks? They weren't, right? They had people watching their flanks. They had accountability, right? They had a system where this is the structure, this is the purpose, what we maintain, this is who we serve, right? And this is our mission, and this is how we do it because we've mastered ourselves, right? I don't know. I'm just really excited about those ideas as they are related to brotherhood because I think that really does come first, right? Because I've done the opposite.
Powerful. I love that, Ed. Man, something you and I have talked about recently is, this concept of the modern Spartan. That I mean, I feel like as men, we have you said when we were kids, we wanted to play warriors and do all the and honestly, just being in a battle and all that was kind of dream scenario until you're live in a air fighter pilot. It's very different. But as kids, and then we get older as men, like in ancient times, that's they would be Spartans. They would fight battles, and the reality is while you're sitting in your gorgeous home in Florida, and I'm in Indianapolis, there's no chance that this group from Indianapolis is going to march to Florida, and you got to get your sword ready. But the reality is while today's episode we're talking about fighter pilots, that's the modern Spartan man of today. While the episode is about fighter pilots, what we're really talking about here is husbands, fathers. We're talking about business owners. We're talking about leaders. We're talking about people who actually are in the battle. Oh, those characteristics that you just described are spot on. And I believe, you know, that's what today's episode is about. And it's about that man that's climbing the mountain, this man that's in the fight, that feels like he's fighting for his life. And Jacob, any final thoughts to share?
Yeah, once again, this could be completely unrelated and out to lunch, but think about how that movie so you haven't seen The Last Samurai, I think it's a great movie. It begins, it's an American Western, like, cavalry type warrior. His life is an absolute mess. Okay, that's me, right? And then he gets basically captured by the samurai. And he's a wreck, right? He's like overcoming alcoholism and then basically like I don't know how long it is, it's like a year or two, but basically he's now stuck in this brotherhood captive where he has to basically transform his life. And then by the end of the movie, he is the last samurai, right? He's totally transformed his life, right? He was in a brotherhood that taught him how to master himself first. So I think a good thread of brotherhood is like we have to learn how to rely on our brothers to keep each other accountable, to master ourselves first. I can't go master my family or my children or my job or my business if my personal life is a mess. And I think that that's kind of what the Spartans, right, kind of did too, right? They learned how to master themselves so that they could then go master something else, which I believe God placed that all in our hearts as men, to go and conquer something, to protect the innocent, to seek the good, to destroy evil, right? To do good in the world, you know?
I don't know anything we can say that is going to top what you just shared. Thank you for sharing that. I tell you what, I think the most powerful message out of the whole day is how you just described the last samurai was a wreck. Felt like his life, or not felt like, it was in shambles. And, my message for you today, my friends, as we wrap this up with my friend Jacob. Jacob, thank you for being here. If you don't care, I'm going to leave some things where I can't imagine that people don't listen to this or want to book you for something to come speak to their men or their groups or whatever. And I know you're able to do that and very effective at it, I might add. But the message of, even if your life is a wreck, even if you feel like I am so far short of those expectations, of those characteristics that we've described, man, it's not strength to keep fighting alone. Strength is send the signal and get help, and then put your life and put yourself back together because it can be done. Strength is in sending the signal. Friends, thank you for being with us today. We'll see you on the next episode of Addicted to Betterment.
So, you just listened to this episode. Now, join us in being addicted to betterment. Please subscribe to the show, share with your friends, tag us, and please take a moment, leave a review. Yeah, we do want your stars, but we really want the feedback.